Yes, always. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to today's program titled Colorful Perspectives STEAM Career Showcase. I'd like to welcome you to the Charlotte Mecklenburg Library and Queen City Bites joint program. We are live on Facebook and YouTube. Go to the next. All right. So thank you so much for joining our program today. As I mentioned, today's program is in partnership with Queen City Bites and Charlotte Mecklenburg Library's Black Lives Matter initiative. And this is in support and celebration of Black History Month. My name is Tanya Lewis. I am an adult services librarian here at the Sugar Creek branch of the Charlotte Mecklenburg Library. And I would also like to welcome and introduce my partner from Queen City Bites, Dania Quigley, who has also been a huge support and she helped a lot of the work. If you'd like to say hello, Dania. All right.
Good morning. Sorry, I was clicking the mute, unmute, but it wasn't doing anything. Good
No
morning.
worries. No worries. Good morning. Good morning. So, as you know, today's program, we are going to be hearing from several professionals within STEAM career fields. And we are really excited to hear from them. Before we get started, I do want to set kind of some ground, background around today's program. This is a safe space of sharing for everyone. Um, we really appreciate our panelists, right? They are willing to share their time, their experiences with us today. It's our chance to hear from people that are actually walking the walk within various science, technology, engineering, arts, and math fields. They're going to be sharing with us their experiences, their lessons learned about their chosen careers, and it takes a certain type of person to be willing to share that part of themselves in their walk. And I really appreciate that, and I want to thank them for the emotional labor they do every day. And just as part of our housekeeping, please note that closed captioning is available through your Facebook and YouTube settings. So feel free to turn those on. Questions may be asked throughout the program using the comments feature. Generally speaking, we will hold questions to the end of the program when we will open it up for an open Q&A portion. And today's program is being recorded. So if you find that you have to leave and come back, please feel free to come back and check out the recording. It will be available. We will also be providing some resources at the end of the program to help you as you move forward and consider a possible career in STEAM. So, with that, we are going to go ahead and get started with introducing our awesome panel members. First, I would like to introduce Dr. Danny Bell Haas, who is a research scientist. And as you see, we have provided her biography. She is a research scientist in packaging and specialty plastics and hydrocarbons at the Dow Chemical Company. So, welcome, Danny Bell. And she does quite a lot of work in the STEM field. She is a leader in several programs. And she also has her PhD in chemistry with a minor in medical chemistry from the University of Florida. She has been a teacher. She has worked in a variety of positions within the science community. So, Danny Bell, if you would like to say a few words.
Absolutely. Good morning again, everyone, and thank you for the kind invitation to join today. So, just to mention, my name again is Danny Belhaz, and I am located in Newcastle, Delaware. I'm currently a research scientist at the Dow Chemical Company, as mentioned, and I work specifically on wire and cable research and development. Wire and cable is very important. It helps us to power our lives. And what I mean by that is everything that we use is it needs power, right? So whether it's your cell phone, flipping the light switch in your house or any room, it needs power. And that's what I do. I help to make sure that we have reliable power for all the things that we need to do to improve our quality of life. And so we're always coming up with new formulations, compounds to do that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. All right, now we're going to move on to our technology panelist. And our technology panelist is Ebony Williams. And Ebony is an associate director of technology for the technology development program at AT&T. She is in the St. Louis area, and she has rolled out a nationwide diversity and inclusion program for the company that has grown from her local office to encompass several of the major cities within the AT&T nationwide footprint. She has received several leadership awards, both locally and nationally. She is extremely active in women of color STEM, and has also received her certificate in telecommunications management, an MBA from Washington University, and a diversity and inclusion certificate from Cornell University. Ebony, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. Thanks so much for inviting me, and good morning to everyone. As Tanya mentioned, I work for AT&T, but I've also kind of kept my finger on the pulse of the technology industry. So I'm very happy to share some of the insights I've learned through the years. I've been in the IT space for over 25 years at AT&T specifically, but also partner with other organizations and student groups.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Ebony.
You're welcome. Thanks.
All right. And with that, we will move on to the A for our arts panelist, Lindia Clark, who is an art therapist, a business owner, and an author. So she encompasses arts on many levels. She is a master life coach practitioner. She is certified in NLP and natural medicine. She also does a lot of work with small and nonprofit businesses as a consultant. And she is a published author. And we do also provide links to some of her endeavors on her page as well. Lindia, would you like to say a few words?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for allowing me to have the opportunity to be here. I currently reside in Charlotte, North Carolina. Love it here. It's one of the great things about North Carolina. I am an herbalist and natural medicine and creative art therapy, and I love being able to help people express themselves through art and just show a positive perspective on how you can overcome any type of obstacles and challenges through art therapy.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And next up, we have our mathematics panelist, Juwan Williams. And Juwan is the CEO of CFO Benefits Incorporated, CFO Consulting, which is a forensic account and audit firm. So she has quite a bit of experience in accounting. She is a CPA. She is currently pursuing her doctorate in business administration with a concentrated research interest in small business growth, economic stimulation, entrepreneurship, and the plight of African American CPAs. She is also the founder and president of the Lady CPA Inc., which is a nonprofit organization aiding in the advancement of women in accounting and other finance professions. And we also do provide links. So for all of the organizations, I should mention this, that you hear us mention associated with our panelists, those will be provided to you as well. The links will be provided on our resource slide at the end of the presentation. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Juwan, if you would like to say a few words.
Awesome. Good morning, and thank you for having me. I am Juwan. I'm actually currently located in Florida, but I spent about 8 years in Charlotte. I started my accounting firm in Charlotte, but I missed the sunshine of Florida, had to leave. I need a little beach in my life. So I'm currently in Florida. My whole goal in life is to change the face of accounting, is what I say, because most people see me like, oh, you're an accountant? I absolutely am an accountant, and that's literally why I'm here this morning, to change the face and the persona of what we feel like an accountant is and what they do and what they look like. So very thankful to be here this morning, open to answer any questions that you guys have about the profession.
Love it, love it. And I think that is one of the really everyone on this panel, right? We are the face of STEAM, right? And the face of STEAM looks different than maybe it looked 50 years ago. And I think that's a good thing. I think it can look like whatever we want it to look like. And you don't have to change being your authentic self to be in a STEAM profession. So I love that. Awesome. Well, with that, we are going to go ahead and we are going to get started. We have a few questions that we're going to ask our panelists, and please feel free to chime in and provide, your perspective at will. The first question, and this question I am going to ask, all attendees to try to answer at least briefly, because I think this kind of sets the groundwork for anyone interested in joining the type of field that you are currently in. And that question is, what education and or job training did you obtain to prepare for your current career? Are there any things in hindsight that you wish you had done or not done? And I'll open it up to whomever would like to answer first.
I can go ahead and start. So in terms of being a chemist or working in a field where we have many different people actually in terms of professions, what I did in order to enter into this profession first was to do a Bachelor of Science. I did it in chemistry, and I had a double major with management or in management. That's not a requirement. The chemistry is fine. Lots of people do different combinations, but if you want to do chemistry, then having a major in chemistry is helpful. After doing that, I took an unconventional route to where I am today. So I did a master's in chemistry, and then I did a PhD in chemistry. And just to mention, if you hear an accent that you're not familiar with, I'm actually from Jamaica. And so I did my bachelor's and my master's in Jamaica, and then I did my PhD and postdoc here. So go ahead. I say my particular concentration of chemistry that I did, often they say after you do your PhD, it's good to do further studies, which is called postdoctoral studies or a postdoc. And that is especially helpful if you want to go into academia. So if you want to be a university professor, it's helpful to do that. If you don't, you can just do anything, your bachelor's, master's, PhD, and then enter straight into the work in terms of corporate America or government, or even other fields such as like science writing. What I wish I would have done in hindsight, I actually don't have anything on the list, and let me explain. So I think it's important for you to focus on the technical aspect, especially before you enter into work, wherever you work. Focus on being really good, understanding the core principles, and knowing how you're going to apply those to solving problems. It is also important for you to be able to, work well with others and collaborate. However, I think today a lot more of that is incorporated into activities during training, whether you're, doing courses, after work, on your own, professional development courses, or whether you're in high school and going through that. So that's the only thing that would have been helpful to have more of a perspective on that. But, you learn that on the job as well. So that's my summary.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Would anyone else like to answer that? And I'll repeat the question just to remind you, what education or job training did you obtain to prepare for your current career? And are there any things in hindsight that you wish you had done or not done?
I can go next. I was struggling to think of an industry that technology does not touch. And so I think it's unique in that even if you start a career in another area or discipline, you can still pivot into the technology space. There are so many different arms that technology connects. So if you're interested in being a data scientist or a software engineer or even a network engineer, or we have a role called technical business manager that marries business and technology at AT&T. And then there's so many other fields. So initially, we have applicants coming in who have 4-year computer science degrees or electrical engineering or even information systems or information services degrees that come straight into our program. But now throughout the technology industry, many companies are bringing in people who have they may have a bachelor's degree in anything, and they decide to go to a specialized boot camp. One company we work with is called Udacity, and they offer nano degrees that take 4 to 6 months to learn just specific information technology knowledge, and really helps them to be able to go into a big company. They may start off as an intern and then get converted to full-time if everything works out. So it's a really interesting field, and it covers so many different areas. I think in hindsight, my background is all over the place, and I appreciate that because it gives me different perspective outside of technology. But I think I probably would have taken the more technical educational route. My undergrad's in speech pathology, which has nothing to do with technology. But I started working in the IT department and started growing and learning while I was in the company. So my advice is if you're interested in it, just kind of start where you are. And then there are different programs online. There are online free websites that will teach you some of these aspects of technology. So there are a lot of different options.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ebony. And actually, some of those free websites are included in our resources that we'll be providing at the end as well, because that's a very good point. Would anybody else like to answer that question?
I'll go next. I have working on my undergrad at TSU. It was with child psychology, and after doing that for a while, I went into nonprofit, which is a very different sector than child psychology. But in that transition, I was able to get a completely different perspective on my role and how I can effectively give back in the manner that I was gifted and talented in. With that, I was able to go back and get my master of practitioners and in therapy, as well as really be able to engage with my clients and allow the people that were around us to see artists and people who have art abilities in a completely different perspective. When most people think about art or artists, they think, and I've had it said to me on many occasions, oh, aren't artists a little flighty? No, that's one perspective of them as a person. An artist can be a scientist. An artist can be a chemist. An artist can be any dimension of creativity that flows through them in their given talent and space. And I love to connect with my clients to allow that creativity to flow in a positive way so that they can have a very joyous connection with their process. Because one of the biggest things that our community faces is mental health issues and not having positive outlooks and steps to get past or work through those issues. So with the art, you're able to work on a project, get hands-on, and not feel so much like the magnifying glass is turned on you when you're working through your issues, you're setting your goals. So by the time you finish with your project, you have a visual to show, you know what, I can do this. Anything I set my mind to, I can achieve. So when you have that painting sitting over there, or you have that refurbished art, or you have that photo that you went outside and took, that is your visual to give you inspiration that I can keep going. I did that. I got outside of my comfort zone, and I can achieve anything that I set my mind to.
I love that. I love that. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of times people forget is that, art is a tool, right? It's a practice in of itself, but it can also act as a tool. And there's a lot of ties between art and technology that people really overlook, right? They are not mutually exclusive. They do not need to be. So thank you for that. Thank you. All right. And with anybody else? I think Juwan, would you like to
believe it is me. So I too took a non-traditional route to becoming a CPA because I was interested in forensics and investigations. So I majored in criminal justice investigations at Florida A&M because I was going to go to law school. So I was like, I wanted to do some crime scene investigations, all of this gory stuff that I realized that I didn't like too much after a while. But I still love the investigations aspect of it. So while I was studying for the LSAT, I started working doing like payroll, accounts payable, accounts receivable. And I'm like, I really like this accounting stuff, but how can I marry the two? So I went and got a master's degree in business administration with a concentration in accounting. And that's kind of when I got my first accounting job. And I'm like, I really like this. I was working in corporate accounting. I love what I did, but I've always been an entrepreneur. I grew up from a family of entrepreneurs. My mom, everyone kind of did their own thing. So I'm like, I can do this for myself. So I started my firm in 2007 in Charlotte. And then it just kind of grew from there. So I was able to take my forensic investigative background with a CPA license and become an auditor and forensic accountant. So now I do a lot of, hey, we're going through a divorce, husband's hiding assets. Can you go figure it out for me? Working cases with lawyers to determine asset value and misappropriation of funds. Hey, we think an employee is, stealing or something's going on. Can you investigate that for us? I love it because it speaks to what I originally wanted to do, which was law, but it takes the numbers aspect of what I love. And a lot of people do have a misconception that accountants, oh my God, you must really be good at math. I'm really good at reasoning. And that's what I tell people. It's not so much like you don't even have to know calculus. If you know some basic algebra and adding and subtraction, but you have to be able to reason what makes sense. So I definitely think that's a huge misconception. Of course, the M is for math, and you need to know, and a lot of math is reasoning. So it's mathematical reasoning, and I love it because I get to do that, what I love, and marry the two together, and now I'm a forensic auditor.
Awesome. I love that. And I think that even speaks to the creativity of math, right? Like you are using the numbers to identify what's really going on in the story. And anybody that's followed any of like the major, when they bust all of the mob bosses and things like that, there is a Juwan in the background that followed the trail down the rabbit hole and figured out, hey, they've got all this offshore money that they've diverted that, so I think that is so interesting. That I love what you guys are sharing about your careers, because I think it shows how multidimensional STEAM careers can be. It is not that stereotype of what people think it is. Mm-hmm. There are so many different aspects and ways to use your STEAM skills. Awesome. Well, we will go on to the second question. And these questions, guys, feel free to answer them as you feel. but do not feel like you have to answer every question. So the next question is talking about skills, right? So we talked a little bit about some of the skills. What skill do you use most in your current job, and how would you recommend someone else develop that skill?
I know in mine what I just spoke to is the reasoning aspect of it, and the that in any aspect really of accounting, whether it's forensics or even if it's CFO consulting, public accounting, private accounting, all of that is still reasonable. What is reasonable in this situation. So if you're evaluating someone's numbers, or even if you're preparing a tax return, because a lot of CPAs accounts or tax accounts, is still what's reasonable. Does this make sense? Now, how do you hone into that skill is asking yourself, does that make sense? Like is a reasonable person from the outside looking in, would that make sense to them? And that's literally what it's all about. If someone is presenting you with numbers or a scenario or something you're evaluating, the first thing you ask yourself is, does that make sense? Would a reasonable person look at this and see the same outcome?
I think it's very similar with technology. Reasoning and problem solving is probably the skills that are used most. Solving for X, trying to figure out why this computer system isn't working. What's wrong? As we all know, we're living in a digital age, and some days they just don't want to work. Like you'll have your computer program working fine for a week, or your Wi-Fi working perfectly, and one day you wake up. And I always joke with my team, our computer systems want a break too. They want a weekend off. They want to take a vacation. Give them a break. I mean, I can't even tell how long my computer is up and running within a 24-hour period. So trying to figure out what's wrong and chasing the rabbit hole to figure that out is really that problem solving is key. And that's how math is so important in computer science studies, because you're learning how to reason, you're learning how to problem solve and try to figure it out. And so those are really important skills that are needed.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
So I totally agree with what Ebony and Juwan said. And I will add to that, because those skills are really important. Problem solving, analytical skills, they're important for everything that you do. I'm going to throw another one in there that I'm not sure if people think about it a lot, but learning, right? You need to keep that skill as one that's very important. Everything around us is changing very quickly. And so you have to keep yourself competitive, but also it helps to hone that problem solving skill. It helps to hone that analytical skill the more you expose yourself to different things. So I'm going to throw learning in there as another one that, you should pay attention to. And how do you learn? Everybody learns in different ways. For me, I like to read a lot, and then I will talk about it. So I love to have that, intellectual, technical, whatever. I love to have that discussion, right? And then there are other people who, they learn by talking to people. I also learn by doing, which other people learn in that way as well. So I'll say learning is important, and figure out how you learn best and do your learning in that way.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And that actually is a skill that I think sometimes people forget about, right? Is the developing of the skill requires you to be able to learn effectively and to know your own learning style, which is what you spoke about, right? I am a visual learner. Different people have different styles, but you have to make sure that you understand your style and do what works for you. Thank you so much. Okay, so I am going to go to our next question, which is around career progression, right? A lot of times in communities of color, we don't necessarily have examples of people in these types of careers. So what does career progression look like in your field? What are the general requirements for a person to position themselves for advancement?
Starting with the accounting profession, there are different avenues because you don't necessarily have to be a CPA, which is a certified public accountant. A lot of people start off just as, maybe in a private company as an accountant, maybe working in public accounting, but you limit yourself if you're not certified. So you can have a great career in accounting. You can work, for a private corporation in their accounting department, and it is great. And I always kind of equate it to the difference between, like, being a paralegal and a lawyer, or being a nurse and a doctor. It's just that certification, but that certification is what opens doors for you to a very affluent career. It really does. Like, it's a huge difference. And growing up in a community where I did not know a single accountant, I had no one as a role model for me at all. I kind of fell into the profession because I loved it. And again, starting off in the public or private accounting will help you discover what avenue you want, because there are so many aspects to accounting. It's government accounting, it's nonprofit accounting, it's public accounting, as I mentioned. It's, owning your own firm. Like, there are several avenues that you can take within the profession. So I really encourage people to find a mentor, even if you think it's something you want to do and you're just not sure, because stereotypes that the profession incurs is very difficult. Like, you wouldn't look at it and think, oh, this is a glamorous career. Oh my God, I want to be an accountant. So I always encourage people to find a mentor and ask those questions, because I actually saw a comment in the chat, and she's sitting with her daughter, and she's saying that all of us we were naturally skilled and kind of discovered our way into the professions. And that's exactly what it is. I think any profession that you enter into, make sure that you love it. So it's something in you that speaks to what you're doing, and you don't feel like, I'm just going to work every day and I'm just sitting over here and I really don't. Like, find what it is that you like, and then make that path for you within the profession that you choose. And there could be aspects of the profession that you don't like. I don't like taxes. So when someone comes to me and say, hey, can you do my taxes? I say, no. But they say, but you're an accountant, right? I absolutely am. But there are aspects to the profession, so you don't have to feel like, if I'm an accountant, I have to do taxes, or if I'm an accountant, I have to do this. Like, you make the profession fit what you love. And because all of our professions are, a wide range of things you can do within it, then you choose that kind of that path that suits you best. I always say, start off maybe in corporate or public, because you want a solid foundation of knowledge before you branch off doing your own thing. But I definitely feel that you can branch off, as all of us have done, and become your own boss or whatever it is that you want to do, and still love the profession. So that's kind of how I feel about it.
Love that. Love that. And one thing I want to mention too, kind of piggybacking on what you said, is creating your own path. So even though this question is centered on career progression, some of our panel members are actually entrepreneurs. So that can also be career progression, right? It can be whatever path that you've decided to take your skills and your professional experience into. It does not have to be a career progression into the next promotion. It can also be what you choose to do as an entrepreneur. So I just wanted to mention that too, in case someone wanted to speak to that as well.
Advancement opportunities in technology can be abundant. I think one of the things that a lot of people don't understand, and one reason why I think it's important to start exposing students early on in life, from babies on up, and exposing them to technology, is that sometimes people of color they have imposter syndrome and don't understand their value and their worth. And they may go into a technology space not understanding that, you probably should negotiate this starting salary, because with your degree, this is what you're worth. One example of that is a colleague of mine, a daughter was graduating with a data science master's degree. And the salary that she was being offered was $50,000 less than what her degree is worth. And her mother came to me and said, I don't think this salary is correct. Can you help her understand? So I sent her daughter resources for her to be able to investigate and find out what she's worth. So in order to be advanced, you need to know that what your worth is. You need to come in and do a good job and work hard, and also make sure that your superiors know what you're doing, and you keep them abreast of the things that you're involved in and all of the different things that go into what it takes to be advanced. I think those are really important.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that is when we talk about the impacts, right, of being the first to do certain things, that tribal knowledge is why programs like this are so valuable, because you may not have someone in your immediate circle that can give you the advice like you gave. But this panel, for everybody watching, this is your tribe, right? This is your chance to ask those questions, to hear from someone who is there, who can tell you, hey, no, that's way undervaluing what you should be paid based on. And as we all know, once you come in the door, you are never going to be able to make up the pay difference if you walk in being severely underpaid, because usually raises are percentage based. So if you come in making $50,000 less, you will, for the rest of your career in that company, be significantly underpaid. So thank you for stepping in the gap for that person. And thank you guys for stepping in the gap in this program for the people watching, because that's the kind of thing that we really need to help the young people to understand, is you need to know your worth, and you need to know how to identify your worth. Resources like Glassdoor. Feel free if there's any other resources that you want to mention, but you should do your research and identify what you should be paid based on what you bring to the table. And don't be scared to ask for it. Awesome. All right.
I'd like to add something if we still have
Yes.
time for this. Just to add a comment about the child or 13-year-old, maybe you're not a child, teenager. So, well, my approach to figuring out what I wanted to do was just to try a lot of things when I was that age. So, I looked at the sciences, I tried doing chemistry, physics, biology, I looked at some other areas as well. And I went based on what I liked and what I could do well. And that's how I ended up in chemistry, I would say. And then just generally speaking, in terms of how you set yourself up for promotions and advancing in chemistry or in science in general. So I think it goes back to some comments that I mentioned about in terms of learning, and I'm going to add adaptability in there. So I am working somewhat as an engineer, a material scientist. I was trained as an organic chemist. When I entered or started at Dow Chemical several years ago, I started polymer synthesis, and I was not trained as a polymer chemist. And so the way Dow hires people is really based on your transferable skills. So what they looked at in my background was that I was able to learn something and apply it in different situations. And that's what they use to gauge whether or not they think you would be successful at the company, because you're not just necessarily going to do what you're trained for. Things change, you might have to shift. That was one thing. And I also want to mention, so in terms of science, it's very important to have the good technical background. And a lot of us do have that background, and we go in and we think, okay, you put your head down, you do your work well, and everybody will notice. But I believe it was Ebony that said, you have to communicate and let people know what value you're adding and you're bringing. And if it's needed, you also have to say, hey, this is the amount of value that I'm bringing. This is what I did. I think I should be compensated more for this value. So keep that in mind. So make sure that you communicate it, because your work will not speak for itself, as many of us believe. And then the last two things I want to mention. So the technical aspect in terms of demonstrating, technical excellence or prowess when you start your career in science is very important. However, to progress more, what you need to do is develop your emotional intelligence, and also your organizational intelligence if you're working for somebody else and you're not, your own boss. What the emotional intelligence will help you to do is to manage yourself and also your relationships with others in the workplace, because you will get nothing done by yourself, right? You will get things done only if you work well with others. And then in terms of organizational intelligence, that's very important later on in your career. I'm going to say maybe, 15, 20-year mark, because that's how you actually, you understand how the organization works. And it doesn't have to be the same organization that you started, but you kind of understand the unspoken. So if you want to get X done, okay, you go to X. This is the person who has the power to, make things move or stop things. Those kind of things are very important as well. So don't forget those two, but I'll say early on, focus on the technical, but still build those skills, because you're going to need them. I'm going to say even more than the technical as you progress.
Awesome.
And then, last one. I also think it's very important for you to understand what the organization values in terms of, what the next step is or the next level. So if you're looking to get promoted, what do they value and what can you do to demonstrate that? So I know for my company, I think based on where I am now, if I want to go to the next step, get the next promotion, which of course I absolutely want to, I know I have to demonstrate that I'm a strategic thinker. And so I make sure that I, take the opportunities to show, hey, here's the strategy plan, and here's what I think, we need to do in the future. You need to do the things for today, but you also need to make sure you have, an idea of how you're going to get to where you want to get in the future. So I'll say, make sure that you also understand what is valued and figure out what you can do to demonstrate that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That is really valuable advice. So what I'm going to do now, I know that one of the things, I think that we've kind of answered the advice that you would give question. So I'm going to finish up on the question of, as you have navigated your career in STEAM and career or owning your own company, whichever applies, what are some of the unique challenges you have experienced as a person of color? How have you overcome or mitigated those challenges?
I will start. Mine could be a little unique. I'm not sure about the statistics of the other professions, but I know in the CPA, is still at this point less than 1% of African Americans are CPAs. So doctors, I think, are about 7% now. I think lawyers are about 13%. African Americans still make up less than 1% of certified public accountants, and it's because it's difficult. The CPA exam itself is only has a 50% pass rate, and it's expensive. And you have to have at least 150 credit hours of school even to sit for the CPA exam, which means you have to have a master's degree. A lot of people run out of steam. Like they run out of either financial support to be able to take the test. They run out, you have to have a bachelor's degree, a master's degree. The study program is very expensive, and then you pay for each test. And then again, the pass rate on the test is less than 50%. So it does take a lot. And I tell people all the time, it's a marathon. It takes time, but you have to keep pushing because it wasn't designed to be easy at all. And it was even a challenge because as an African American, in order to become a CPA, you have to work under a licensed CPA. So you can have all of your degrees, you can pass all 4 parts of the CPA exam, but then you also have to work under a CPA to sign off. And what other African Americans faced is that part, not being able to work under another CPA. It was actually a Jewish accounting firm that began to let African Americans work under them in order for us to become licensed CPAs. It wasn't until I believe the 20s, and I should know this because my dissertation is on it, but that we really faced those challenges because we couldn't find other firms to let us work under and sign off on our work until Jewish accounting firms decided, okay, let's start this. So, and we're still drastically underrepresented in the field. And then when you get into the field as a woman in accounting, number one, you're already going to be probably only woman there. And then as an African American woman, you definitely will be. I've sat in a lot of conferences. I've sat in a lot of meetings where I'm the only woman of color. I'm probably the only person of color there, but I do it with a confidence that is unmitigated. And that's what you have to do. Like, you cannot take down. Like, you go into the room and you know that I offer more than any of these people here. And you're going to have to. Sadly enough, you will have to be able to offer more. So you have to offer more just to be equally lateral to these people. But you do it, and you do it with grace, and you do it with confidence because you know you're supposed to be there. And as a mentor in the profession, I tell you, I started my nonprofit because of that. You know, we get so many questions about, you know, how am I okay with being the only African American in the room? Or, you know, how am I okay? You be okay with it because you know you deserve to be there. You know, you've worked hard to be there, and this is your rightful place in the profession. I think that is very important because you will face challenges. Like when I was in private accounting, working in corporate accounting, I should say, you know, I went up for promotion several times, was the only one with a master's degree in my department. And at that time, I think I was working on my doctorate and still was getting passed over for promotions. And then I just started my own, which has been the best thing ever for me anyway. And now, you know, even at my own firm, I love you men, but I employ all women who are CPA candidates to work under me so that they can easily become licensed. So the best way to progress in the profession is to pay it forward. You know, if you're a Black CPA and you know that we face these challenges, then you need to employ other people under you so that you can pay it forward. And I think one of the questions that we may get to it is about the organizations. There are several organizations now that are helping African American men and women become CPAs. Mine is for women, the Lady CPA Network, but then you have the National Society of Black Certified Public Accountants. You have the National Association of Black Accountants. And I had so many people ask me, well, why? You know, why is this society just for? Because we're paying it forward, because not everyone had that opportunity. So, you know, yeah, there are a million accounting associations out there, but specifically ours speak to African Americans because we need that. Like, we need an organization that says, hey, I got this for you. I'm going to help you and bring you up in this profession, because it's not, you know, it's not easy at all. And it's not, you know, like I said, you don't get the glamour of the profession, but it really is a profession where, you know, it's well accomplished people still in the profession, and generations of CPAs within, you know, one single family. And I definitely think that being a woman of color in the profession has its rewards. It really does.
Thank you so much. That I think that pay it forward concept is everything, right? You are actually blazing that path and making the path wider, right? Mm-hmm. Making the path more accommodating, more available, being the village, being the tribe, the resource for the young people coming forward, and even people our age who may want to do a career pivot. Maybe when you were younger, you didn't think that was even an option for you, but guess what? It's an option. And I want to mention something. Danny Bell made up a really great point about you have to advocate and self-promote. Part of what we do here at Sugar Creek, we are a job help center, and we run into this all the time. I'm going to speak to women. that imposter syndrome, that shrinking yourself to, to be small because you've been taught not to take up space, not to brag. There is a book, I'm putting on my librarian hat. It's called Brag Better by Meredith Feynman. I want every man, woman, child to get a copy, read it, highlight it, take notes, learn how to talk about your accomplishments in a factual way. It is, if I say I do the most programs of any adult services librarian, that is a statement of fact. It is not bragging, right? And we need to get comfortable with promoting the work we do, because I promise you, people who are less accomplished have no problem speaking up for themselves. And when you play backgrounds too much, people relegate you to background, and you get background pay, you get background treatment. And that is, I think, something that we in our culture struggle with quite a bit. So that book is Brag Better. We have it at the library, but don't write in ours. Get your own copy, okay? You can check it out from us, but I'm gonna need you not to highlight my book. So go get your own copy if you want to highlight. But if you don't, come get ours. You can make copies and do what you need to do. But I will tell you, that book really is, it gives you the tools to do exactly what Danny Bell was talking about, being able to promote the work you do effectively. All right. I know we are about out of time. I want to open it up if there are any questions. I think that we have actually answered the questions that came, but if you have any other questions, please put them into the comments. I am going to circle, we've got about 5 minutes. So, and we have 4 panelists. So while we're waiting for your questions, I am going to go and give each panelist a chance to kind of have a final say. I'm going to start with Lindia, because I want to make sure that we hear about arts. And I think that her journey as an entrepreneurship also, and speaking to what Juwan said, sometimes you have to make your own path, right? You have to make it for yourself if you don't find where you fit, or you just don't want to fit. Maybe you just want to do your own thing. So I'm going to kind of go down the row and ask each person to kind of give some closing comments. So I'll start with Lindia.
Thank you, Tanya. Just like the ladies had said, being in art and also being an entrepreneur, as Tanya referenced that great book as far as bragging about yourself in a positive way. As an artist, that's one of my giftings. But when someone is thinking about art, just remembering to tap into that creativity part of yourself, own that, and don't diminish who you are. You need to be confident in your authentic self. And that's one of the things that I have come to realize with a lot of my clients and artists that I work with, or even those who are looking to become artists, is that they're having a hard time connecting with their authentic self, because they have tried to fit in a box for so long in society, in families, with mentors, with people and friends, that they haven't had a chance to really get to know themselves. So one of the things that I would recommend is, if you're thinking about art, you're thinking about doing anything in being creative, whether it be with your hands, whether it be photography, whether it be painting, whether it be you're designing a website and using that creative flow, just commit yourself to that creativity process and learn as much as you can about it. You know, we're on the library's platform. Use the libraries. You have so many free resources right at your fingertips. Check the website out. Talk to the librarian. They are there to assist you to answer any questions that you may have. And sometimes, finances can be an obstacle. That is no longer an obstacle in this day and age. I know for me, growing up in Louisville, Kentucky, We got to go to the library once a month. And yes, I was that one that 99 books to check out. I was not, I was pushing it, 99. And I read each and every one of them because I wanted to learn as much as I possibly could about what I was thinking about at that time. And I suggest to go ahead and do that. Be curious in every area. I mean, ask questions. That be seen and not heard days, those are gone. Ask, the only dumb question is the one that's never asked. Ask it. Because I guarantee you, if you're in class, you're in your workspace, the person next to you probably is thinking the same thing, but they're too scared to step up or ask that question. So have confidence in yourself to get that knowledge that you need. And you're there to gain the knowledge. So whether you're in class, the teacher is being paid to teach you, you're in your workspace, they are paying you to be as effective as possible and to understand what you're doing. They are there to give you those resources that you need. And if they're not doing that, then you need to speak up and say, I need other leadership. I need other guidance. I might need to go to a different company that will give that to me, and be okay with that change. And don't apologize, because only you know what you need for you. And no one from the outside can give that to you. So you have to have the confidence to speak up for yourself and be able to express it in a positive way, so that you know that you are healing, you are whole, and you are walking your authentic self out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And guys, I know we are at time, but I do want to give everyone a chance to kind of give a closing comment. So I'm going to ask if everyone could just keep it to a minute. I'm sorry, but that'll put us at 10:35, and we will go ahead. And for everyone joining us, once we get done, we will also go to a slide with resources that you will be able to see. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and go to that slide. That's the next slide, La. If you could go to the next slide, and I will turn it over to Juwan if you want to give your closing comments.
Yep, just thank you for having me. If anyone is interested in finding out more about the history of accounting, there is a book written by Teresa Hammond. It's called A White Collar Profession. It takes you through the history of accounting, the plight of African Americans trying to become certified. She did an awesome job at it. She's had a couple of specials on TV about it recently. So again, the author is Teresa Hammond. It's called A White Collar Profession. I advise anyone that wants to enter the accounting profession to read that book and know that you can definitely make a change in the profession. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And as you see here, we did include your link to the Lady CPA Network website. So anyone that is interested in learning more about any of the organizations associated with any of our speakers, we have included that, and you actually see the entire URL for you to be able to take a screenshot. And if you want to go visit their sites, please, we encourage you to do that. Right. I will go on now. Danny Bell, if you'd like to make a closing comment.
Absolutely. So again, thank you for having me. And there were so many great comments. I think today I want to end by having us think about how we're going to approach failure. It's not something that we talked about. And how are we going to approach difficult situations, like if things don't work out the way we want. So as we talked about, things can be hard, microaggressions and so forth. And I'll say, make sure that you look for the learning that you can take from that experience, so that next time, because more often than not, there will be a next time, right? You understand how to navigate that in a productive way. So don't be afraid to try new things, because you're afraid to fail. And if things don't go as planned, whatever it is, it's not the end of the world. And, always be open to, change and, just looking for, the best outcome. So don't be afraid to fail.
Love it.
It's a
And that
part of
is so
success.
true. That is so true. And resiliency, right? That concept of resiliency is everything.
Mhm.
Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. Okay. And last but not least, Ebony, if you'd like to give a closing comment.
Sure. Thanks again for this opportunity. It was so wonderful meeting the ladies on the panel. I'd just like to leave you with a few pearls of wisdom. If you are, I think exposure is key, whether you're exposing other people to fields and technology or if you're being exposed yourself. But even from a young age, make sure that you're exposing other people and you are being exposed to technology. Also, if you're pursuing a 4-year degree in a technology field, make sure you connect with the career services departments at your university and go to career fairs. Internships are very important. Also understand that there is a usually an assessment that you'll have to take to enter some of the bigger companies. And some of the interview processes are a little daunting at times. So get some do research on the interview process as you're going into those companies. So it's good to know ahead of time before you and not get discouraged.
I totally agree. And one of the resources we listed earlier, Glassdoor, does have a section where people who have interviewed with specific companies for specific roles share the types of questions or information on the interview process. They also share salary information. So that is a very valuable resource for a lot of the tips that the panelists have mentioned. And like I said, we at the library are happy to help. Part of what we do is help you connect to the resources so that you can do your research and learn about the requirements, learn about the salaries, learn what's required, right? All too often people will come in and say, I want to go into IT. Well, as you've heard from our panelists, information technology has 20,000 types of jobs that are included, right? So you have to do your due diligence and learn, and we can help you with that. So feel free to visit the library, to reach out to us. Also, to use the resources like this program. There was a previous program in October. It is also available on our Facebook page where we had another group of STEAM professionals that spoke. So reach out. And anytime you have an opportunity to network and learn from people that are in the field, get it firsthand, talk to people. People are often happy to share their knowledge, just like our wonderful panelists have today. So I really want to thank you all for your time, for getting up early on a Saturday to come and do some lifting and some emotional labor to share with us your journeys. We are so excited to see the work you've done and to see what you're going to continue to do in the future. If there's anything I can ever do to support you, please reach out. And I just want to thank you so much for being so generous with your time and with also your intention today, right? Of paying it forward. So thank you for that. And I hope everyone enjoyed this program. Please feel free. If you want to listen to it again, like I mentioned, it is recorded. And with that, we will end it. And I will just say thank you and be well, everyone. Be well.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.